Hello. Hello, hello. All right. So, very good afternoon, everyone. So, welcome back to the session. So, in yesterday's session, we were discussing about concepts where we understood about setter injection with XML. Then we understood about scope of a bean. Then we have also understood about life cycle of a bean, right? And we had gone into a new concept which was called as annotations, right? So this is what we had discussed in the previous session. So one thing I got to know later part is that whatever we discussed yesterday was not recorded. I don't know if you have seen the portal, I mean the LMS. The recording was not done yesterday. I mean, it was not recorded yesterday is what I got to know it later. So, there were also a lot of requests that we got. I guess somebody posted in the Slack, multiple messages is what we received, that, the recording was not there for the session. And I totally understand that, because after you go back, if you have to practice, you need the recording sessions to practice. So what I'll do is quickly, for the maybe say 10-15 minutes, I'll take a new example and redo the examples for the same concept, so that this today it would be recorded properly and you can watch it once you go back, right? So in today's today's session, if I have to just first of all tell you what were the concepts that we discussed yesterday. So the first and the foremost concept that we discussed in yesterday's session was setter injection using XML, right? So the second concept that we discussed about was scope of a bean, right? And the third concept was life cycle of a bean, and the last one that we discussed about was IoC with annotation, right? So will you agree with me? This is what I had discussed in yesterday's session. So what I want to do is I want to take up one more example today for setter injection. So I want you to participate with me, because yesterday it was not recorded again. So I want you to participate with me to give me a code, or to help me code this example, right? So for this, what I want to do here in this concept or with respect to setter injection is maybe I will consider an interface. Maybe I will consider an interface which I will call it as a car interface, right? So in this car interface, what I will do is I will say I'll have one method, maybe saying get details, right? So there is one method called as get details, where I'm going to probably get the details of the car. So now there would be two different classes which are going to now implement this interface. So this is how you indicate implementation. So I will say maybe there is one car which is called as a Swift car, which is going to implement this interface, and there is one more car, let's say a Polo, which is going to implement this interface, right? So when they are implementing, what they are supposed to do is they are supposed to override this method which is called as the get details method. So they are supposed to override the get details method. So some information I'm going to write it inside the get details method. Then I will have a beans.xml file. So tell me, in the beans.xml file, what I will do is I will generate or write beans for the bean tag for my both the cars, that is Swift and also the Polo car, right? So I hope what is that I am going to do here is clear. So let me get into Eclipse now, and let me start writing my code here. All right. So for this, what I'll do is I'll just close away whatever I had my files open. So I'll now create a new project. Again, for the creation of a project, as I told you, if you want, you can directly create it here as a new Maven project, or else if you want, you can go to start.spring.io and get your project. So I am going to the start.spring.io. So you can see here start.spring.io, and in this I am going to say I want a Maven project, a Java project. 3.2.2 is what I am using. Group ID is I am going to write it as com.tap, and the project I am going to write it as setter injection. Setter inj is what I will write, and maybe package name I will change it to com.tap only. I don't want dot setter injection because the package name looks so big. So I'm going to write it here as com.tap, then packaging, jar packaging, Java 17 is what I'm using, and then I will say here as generate project. So the project has got downloaded. So I'll go here, I'll right click, I will say it as extract all, and I'm going to extract this project. So you can see in downloads, in setter injection, there is this project called as setter injection, which I now have. So what I will do is I'll go to Eclipse. In Eclipse, I'm now going to go to file, and I'm going to say open project from a file system. So now here I'm going to say where is the project that I want. It is in downloads, in setter injection folder. This is the project where I have it. I'll select it, and I should be checking it. .xml is not, the pom.xml is not here. So again, file, open project, directory. What's happened? Setter injection, select. Let me just finish and check. So that's okay. Okay, I had to import it. In this way also you can get it. So pom.xml is here anyways, not a problem. So yes, so I have my project here. So right click, Maven, update project. So this particular setter injection project I'm going to update it. Okay, so once I've updated my project, I'm now going to create the interface that I want. The car interface is what I wanted. So I will go into my src main java com.tap. Here I'll create a new package which I will call it as com.tap.interface, and inside this I'm now going to create a new interface called as the car interface. All right. So now I have the car interface, in which I would say there is a method called as the void get details method. Right. So I have a method called as void get details. So now I will create new package called, sorry, details. Okay, DETAILS. Okay. So now I want to create a new package under com.tap.implementation. So I'll say com.tap.impl, and under this com.tap.impl I will now say probably I have a new car which is a Swift car. So, and I am going to say Swift implements a car interface from com.tap.interfaces. Then I will finish it. So you can see here it already has a method which it wants me to override. So what am I going to write here, if you ask me? So inside this, maybe I will simply write here for now as system.out.println this is a Swift car. Some message I am going to write here saying this is a Swift car. Okay sir, now we have a Swift car. Next, what is the next thing? So next I have a Polo as well. So I'll right click on my com.tab.impl. I will say I want a new class, which I will write it as Polo, and I'm going to say Polo also implements the car package, then finish it. So here I will simply write it as system.out.println. This is a Polo car. Right, I hope it is clear till here. Alright sir, now I have two different classes. One is a Swift class and the Polo class. So what do I have to do next? Next I want to define the beans. So what I will do is I have src main Java, src main resources. So I'll right click, I'll ask for a new file, and I'm going to call it as beans.xml file. Right. So now I have a beans.xml file. Here what I will do is I'll get the beans code from my previous file, some file I'm going to get it from. So I'll just copy all this, I'll paste it here. So this was from a constructor injection program. So I'm going to remove away all the beans that I had written here. So this is setter injection with respect to XML. So what I will do is first of all, I am going to create a bean to first of all get a car, right? So bean ID is equals to, I am going to write it as Swift, and okay, if there is an ID called as a Swift, which class object has to be created, right? com.tap.impl Swift, right? com.tab.impl Swift. This is the class whose object has to be created if the user is asking for Swift. In the same way, if the user is asking for Polo, I am going to say it as com.tab.impl.polo. I hope it is clear till here. Now I will go into my main method. So I am going, sorry, not this project, sorry, where is this? Okay, src main Java com.tab. Okay, so this is where I had my main method. So I'll just remove away this annotation also, because this is not a Spring Boot application anyways. Alright, so you can see I have my main method. So in this main method, what I'm now going to do is I'm going to ask for the beans. If I have to ask the beans, first and foremost thing, application context object I need. So I'm going to say new class path XML application context. Where is this? I'm going to say please refer beans.xml, and now I'm going to refer it by AC. So first I'll import this, then I will say create a local variable. It's okay, I'm using class path XML application context only. Okay sir, once you have the class path XML application context, what is that we are going to do? I'm going to ask for a Swift bean and also for a Polo bean. So I'll now say here as AC dot get bean of Swift, and maybe I'm going to store it inside yes, and yes I'm going to write it is car type yes. So I will import it. Now I have to add cast to car. So in the same way I will just paste it here. So I'm going to say car p is equals to car of AC dot get bean of Polo. So once I've got both of them, I'm now going to say yes dot get details, then p dot get details, and this is a void method, which means it's not returning anything to me. That is okay. So now I am going to run this code, and running this code will give me, this is a Swift car, this is a Polo car, right? So now what I want to do is whatever the car names I have, Swift car, Polo car, I don't want to have it here. Rather, I want to have one variable here as a string type model, right? And that model, whatever I have, I want to print it here. I hope you understand this, right? So the same thing I will do it for my polo car also. So you can see the same thing is what I am doing for polo as well. But now, sir, who is going to set this model if you ask me? See, this model, I want my spring container, the bean factory, to set it while it is creating an object. And how it is going to set it is I want to set it using a setter injection. So if I want a setter injection, first and foremost thing, I need to be declaring a setter first of all. So I will right click, go to source, ask for generate getters and setters. I will say I only want setters, and I am going to generate a setter here. So you can see I have a setter here called as the set model. Right? I hope it is clear. Okay, sir, now I have the set model. What next? Yes, the set model, I am going to declare it inside my polo as well. Right? So once I have declared it in the polo car as well, what is the next thing that I am going to do is I will go to beans.xml. And I am going to say, boss, whenever anybody is going to ask you for a Swift car, don't just give the object. While you are giving the object, there is one method, setter method. There is one variable called as model. So you have to set the data into model. Right? So for this, since I am using a setter injection, I will be using something called as property tag. So I will use something called as a property. So I am going to say property name is equals to, tell me what is the variable name in the class? It is model, and value is equals to, maybe I will say Swift car. In the same way for polo also, when anybody is asking for the polo thing, polo object, then I am going to say, boss, there is a, sorry, name only. Property name is equals to model, and value is equals to polo car. Right? So this is what I am going to ask for it. Now let me just go back to the main method. Let me just run my code. So you can see I have, this is a Swift car and polo car. So this is where, with respect to a value, sir. Maybe let's assume that there is one more object which I want to inject into my car now. Right? Maybe let's assume that what I will do is I'll have a new package here called as classes. So I'll say here as a new package com.tap.classes. So here inside this I will have a new class called as infotainment. Right? So I'm going to have a new class called as infotainment. And what I am now going to say is this infotainment is going to have some details, right? Maybe string type brand I have, right? I have a string type brand, and maybe there is one method inside this which I will say it as a void get info method, and here I will say system.out.println this car has whatever is the brand name, I will append it and I will say so and so infotainment system. Alright, I hope it is clear. Sir, okay sir, now what about this brand, sir? Who is going to give this value for the brand? This also I want my Spring Bean only to inject it. So in such case, for brand I should be now having a setter, right? Since I am doing setter injection, so I will say source generate getters and setters, select setters, I am going to generate a setter here. Okay, now I have the setter. What is that I am going to do? So I will go declare a bean. In the beans.xml, I am now going to declare a new bean here. You can see bean id is equals to I1 I will write. Right? Bean id is equals to I1 and then class is equals to, where is it? Com dot tab dot classes dot infotainment, or what is it? Infotainment, yeah. Right? Okay, sir. Now this object is being generated, sir, but brand name should be injected, sir, using the setter injection. So let me do it by writing here as maybe what is it, property, and I'm going to property. So I'm using a property tag where I'll say property name is equals to brand, and value I am going to say maybe this is a JBL infotainment system which it has. Right? Okay, sir. In the same way, I will declare one more infotainment system object that is I2, which I will say as Sony. Right? So what I now want to do is whatever this I1, that is the infotainment one object I have, I want to set it to Swift, and I2 I want to set it to Polo. So first of all, if I have to set it to Swift and Polo, first of all, the classes should be accepting them. Yes or no? So for that, what I will do is I will go into the Swift class. Here, I am going to say, boss, I need infotainment I1 here, or I will say infotainment I will import it. In the same way, I will just copy this. I will put it into Polo by saying, here also I am expecting one infotainment system. So now your Swift class and the Polo class should now be accepting the data for I in the form of a setter. Yes or no? So I will now inject a setter by saying source generate setters. So I will only say setters. I setter is what I want. So you can see public void set I is equals to set I accepting infotainment of I. This dot I is equals to I is what I have. So I will just copy this. I will go into my Polo class. In the Polo class I am going to paste the same. Right? Sir, okay sir, here it is accepting sir, but in the beans I am not injecting it sir. Right? Now in the bean I have to inject it. So I will say boss, in my Swift car, there is one more property that I have. What is the property? The property is a variable called as I. And which object do I want to inject? I want to inject I1, but it is not a value that I am injecting. It is an object address. So I will change it to REF. Sir, what do you mean by REF, sir? See, REF means that, boss, in the beans that I have declared earlier, there is one object. That object with ID I1, can you please inject it here? I hope you understand this. So similarly, I will just copy the same thing. I will paste it for Polo as well. And here I will say I2 is what I am going to inject. I hope it is clear. So once I have injected I1 and I2, I will now go back to my Swift and also Polo, because I want to display them. I guess I am displaying it already. Infotainment is having a set brand get info method, but I have to call this get info method anyways. So I will come to Swift and I will say I have one method which I will write it as public void get info method. And what will this get info method do if you ask me? It is going to use the reference I, and it will say I dot get info. I guess I should make that as a public method. So you can see here it is not in public method. So I will come back to my Swift So I will say I dot get info is what I'm printing. In the same way, I will have this in my polo.java as well. So one problem that I will have here is if you just have a look at the main method, I am using a car reference. So using the car reference, I will not be able to call the specialized methods of the implementing classes. So what I want to do is I want to make this method called as get info available in your car constructor as well. So I will go to my car.java. In this, I am going to add the void getInfo method. So now I will go back to my main method here. I will say s dot get info method. In the same way, p dot get info method I will call. Right. So now in case if I run this code, so you can see this is a Swift car and this car has JBL infotainment, this is a Polo and it has Sony infotainment system. Right. So one thing that you will have to understand here with respect to setter injection is that if you look at the beans.xml, here it's not just the value that I can inject into an object, even if there is another object which I want to inject, I can be doing it. Right. It is similar to your, in your core Java, you had a concept which was, what was it, an object being present inside an object. Aggregation and composition. Right. What are aggregate objects, composite objects? In the same way here, I am saying that, your infotainment system is an composition object for a car, because whenever you get a car, you have all of it inside it. Right. So I hope it is clear. So this was one concept that I discussed in yesterday's session. Apart from that, I also told that there are a couple of methods. Before that I'll have to talk about scope of a bean. So whenever you declare a bean in your Spring, you will have a single bean generated every time. So let me do it this way. So I'll just comment away all of it. And what I'll start doing is only Swift car I'll start generating, which means I'm going to ask my Spring container to give me Swift car that is yes, S1, S2. So once I have yes, S1, S2, I'm now going to tell my Swift, I'm going to print the car. I'm not going to print the details of the car or the info of the car. I'm only going to print the car address, which means the object of the car I'm going to print it here. So system.out.println yes, system.out.println S1 and S2. So once if I print this, you can see here the address is going to be the same, which means every time it is the same object that is going to be printed. But in case if you want to change this, what you can use is there is something called as scope. There is something called as scope which you can use. Just a second. Okay. So, whenever you use a bean, whenever you write a bean here, so whatever bean you are going to write, by default, your beans will have a scope which is called as singleton. Right? Your beans by default will have a scope called as singleton. So singleton scope is going to generate only one single bean every time you try generating a bean. But in case if you want a new object to be generated every time, you have something called as scope as prototype. You have a scope as prototype which you can be using. Right? So what I will do is I will now try to change the scope to prototype. You can just have a look at it here. So probably let's assume I'm changing the Swift car only. So I will say here as scope is equals to singleton first. So if it is singleton, what will happen? SINGLE, singleton, okay. So if it is singleton, what will happen is every time it is going to be the same object which will be generated. Now I will change the scope to prototype. And once if I change the scope to prototype, sorry, I'll go to the main method. I'll execute my main method, and you can see all the three objects that are generated are different objects which have got generated, right? So this is with respect to the scope of the bean. So apart from that, there are three more scopes with your beans, but it is mostly used with your web files. Whenever you are creating web applications, probably in that cases is when you will be needing it. So apart from this, I also discussed about init and destroy methods. So what is a life cycle of a bean? I had discussed about what is a life cycle of a bean. Let me just write it here for you. What is a life cycle of a bean? So as I told you, whenever you write a Spring application, your application will execute or will start, right? So once your application starts, you are going to start your Spring container. So once the application starts, the Spring container starts. Okay, sir, once the Spring container is started, what will happen? So what your Spring container is going to do is whatever are the beans, all that beans it will start generating, that is the beans will be created. I am going to write it here as beans are created. So it's not that the beans are created, whatever the beans are created, if there is any dependencies needed for the beans, so those dependencies will also be injected. Dependencies are injected. So maybe it can be either your constructor injection or the setter injection. Dependencies are injected, and after that you may feel, okay sir, now my bean is ready to execute. Before you can execute your bean, if you have any init methods that you have, as soon as the bean is generated, if you want to do some process to it, so such methods you can write it as init methods. So I will say these are custom methods, which means you write it, right? So your init method will execute. Once your init method is executed, you can use beans, you can call all the methods, you can do all the operations with your beans, and then just before your application context closes up, you will have a method called as destroy method, which will execute. One thing I want you to understand here is, if your destroy method, if it has to execute, you need to close your application context. Class path XML application context, whatever you have, either you represent it as AC, you will have to close it. If and only if you close it, the destroy method is going to get executed. So let's assume that for the same example, whichever the Swift car example that I had, so what I am now going to do is I am going to say I have a couple of methods written inside my Swift car. I am going to write here as void start method. I am going to write it as void start method. So I'll simply say system.out.println, this is init method. I'm going to write it as this is init method. In the same way, in the end I will write one method as void end method, and here I'm going to include by saying system.out.println, maybe I will say this is destroy method. Okay sir, you have the init and destroy methods. What next? Yes, now I will go to my bean and in my bean I'm now going to say, boss, this is Swift, you know, you are having a prototype, let me remove it and make it as a singleton for now, or you know, prototype, whatever it is okay for me. So now what I will do is I will say the Swift has a init method. So can you tell me what is the init method that I have declared? The init method that I have declared is start, right? No brackets. I guess it should go inside a double quote, right? So this is my init method. In the same way, I will also have a destroy method which I will write here for my bean. Destroy hyphen method is equals to end. I hope you are able to understand this. Now I want you to understand, I am going to generate 3 beans, which means 3 times the init method will be called, 3 times the destroy method has to be called. So let me just try to run it. You can see init method is called for 3 times, objects are created and the address of object is printed, but destroy method is not executing because as I told you, whatever this application context I have, I need to close it. So I will close my application context, and now you can see still it's not executing. Beans.xml destroy destroy method and Swift. I have end method here. This is destroy method. Why is it not executing? AC dot close. Is it because of prototype? It should not be for prototype. Let me just check. Yesterday did I make it singleton?
Yes,
let me just check. Alright, so I guess that is because of that. But your destroy method will be called for once. It will not be calling for all 3 times because here only one object is being created this time. So you can see your init method is also being called for once and the destroy method is also being called for once. So init and destroy methods will not work with your prototype scope, right? So this is with respect to the XML concepts which were concerned. Then we got into the annotation. So with respect to annotation, I'll make the changes here in the same application so that I don't have to recreate anything new again. So for the annotations, if I have to tell you, I'll not be writing the bean the bean definitions, right? So I will just remove away particular things for now, for initial explanation, because I don't want to perform setter injection, constructor injection for now. So I'll just remove away both of these. As I told you, I'll not be using the init destroy method. It's just a annotation which you will have to write as a post construct and pre destroy. I'll show that. I have a setter method also. I don't need set I. I'll remove. So only this is one method, get details method. In the get details method, I will say this is a Swift car. So get info I am removing and the end method I am removing. Right. So I'll go to the car interface, get info I am just removing from the car interface for now. Sir, okay sir, in the same way for Polo also I'll do the same thing. I'll just remove away all of these methods. Here also I'll just remove away all of this, and here I am going to say this is a Polo car. Right? So now what I want to do is I want to write a code where I am going to create a Polo car object. So whenever you write a code using annotations to create objects or the beans in your classes, what you will be doing is you will use something called as Control Shift O. Okay, you will use something called as component. So the name of the component here I am going to write it as Polo. I will import component. In the same way for Swift I am going to write it as @ component and I'm going to write it as Swift. Okay, sir, now you have a Polo and a Swift with you. How are you going to generate this object? So, can you tell me where is the Swift and Polo classes present? They are present inside com.tab.impl implementation. So, whatever objects I need, will you agree with me, they are present in one package. So, what I will tell my bean is, boss, whenever a user wants an object, he is either going to ask by saying give me Swift object or give me Polo object. He is going to ask you by saying give me Swift object or Polo object. So you do one thing, where are these classes? You go search. You know, I have declared them as component classes. What are component classes? The classes whose object has to be generated by a Spring container, they are called as component classes. So I am going to tell you where the components are present, which package you need to scan, you can go there and scan. So for that I will use a annotation, I will use a tag here as context colon component hyphen scan, and I am going to say, okay, whatever the classes that you have, they are present in a base package. What is the base package? com.tab.impl component, okay. So NENT. As I told you again yesterday, you know, I made some additional lines here, so I copied the same thing because I only have it for the beans. I need it for my context as well. So I am going to copy this line, whatever I have here, schema location, and I am going to say http www springframework.org schema context I want here. And here also I will say after schema, wherever I have beans, I will remove beans and I am going to write it as context, and here I will write it as spring hyphen context. I hope it is clear. So even after writing this, you will still have an issue. So for that what I will do is I will just copy this bean thing, whatever I have. So I will come down here, I will paste it and I will say xmlns colon context, and here I will change it to context. Right, now that error whatever you had for the context is gone. Sir, okay sir, now I have written this much, sir. What is that I will have to do? So I will have to go to the setter injection application, whatever the main method I had. I will just remove away all of this whatever I had written here, and whatever I had commented, I am going to uncomment them for now. So get info method I don't have, so I will remove the get info method. So you can see here, I am going to ask my application bean to give me a Swift object, give me a Polo object. So one thing I want you to understand, whenever you ask for a Swift object and a Polo object, whenever you ask for a bean, the first and the foremost thing that your Spring container is going to do is it will go to beans.xml. Tell me, have you declared any bean called a Swift or Polo? No. But you have told one package for the Spring container by saying, here you may find it. So first I am asking for Swift. So immediately it will go to this package. What is that package? com.impl. So this is the package com.impl. It will open the first class. Do you have component name as a Swift? No, it is Polo. So it will go to the next class. Do you have the component name as Swift? Yes. So it will create an object of this class and give it to me, which I am collecting it in a reference variable. Yes. The next thing, it will come and it is I have told it as Polo. So again it will go to beans.xml. It will come to this package as com.tab.impl. In that it will look for the first class. Yes, it is Polo. So it will create an object of a Polo class and it is going to give it to me. So what do I have? This is a Polo car is what I have inside my Polo car, and for the Swift I have, this is my Swift car. So you can see here now, in case if I execute this, it is going to tell me this is a Swift car, this is a Polo. I hope it is clear. So any confusion here? So this is what I had discussed in yesterday's session. So all those who missed, I mean, again, it was my mistake that it did not get recorded. So the same example, I mean the same process, I want you to follow it for the bank example and also the trainer example which we did earlier, right? So now what I want to do is I want to use annotation, right? And while using annotation, what I will first do is, where is my Swift car? So this is my Swift car class. So what I will do here is, if you just have a look at it, I have this is a Swift car written. So whatever this Swift car I have, I will make it as model variable. And I want to inject data into the model variable, first by using constructor, then by using setter. Is it clear? So what I want to do, first I want to inject by using constructor, then by using setter. So can I try doing it? Right. So for this, I will first make the changes in my class. I will remove away Swift car, and here I will say string type model. And here I am going to say, boss, this is a model, whatever model you have, you will be displaying it here. So the same thing, I'll just copy it, I'll put it inside my Polo class as well, right? Sir, okay sir, but now how am I going to set the data? Sir, first I told you I'll use the constructor injection. So for the constructor injection, I am now going to say, first of all I need a constructor. So I will say here as public Swift constructor, and this constructor should accept a string type model, and here I will say this dot model is equals to model. Is this clear? Sir, okay sir, now I have model, I mean the constructor written, sir. Now I want to inject the data, sir. Yes. So the injection of data, I can be doing it, but whenever I am going to inject the data, see, first of all, I will have to tell my program, boss, whenever anybody is asking you for a Swift car object, remember one thing, this data has to happen through constructor injection. If it is happening through setter injection also you should mention, if it is happening through constructor injection also you should mention. So for helping your injection process, if you are doing constructor injection or if you are doing setter injection, you will use one annotation. In your beans, you know, your beans was having different tags. There was a constructor argument tag, there was a property tag, right? But here my constructor has only one tag. Whether it is my annotation is only having one annotation. That is an annotation called as auto wired annotation. So what I am saying is, you know, the data into this constructor has to be auto wired or auto injected by my Spring container. I hope you are able to understand this, right? So now for this, what I will do is I will say, boss, now this model has to have some data, right? What is the data? It is Swift car. To enter the data, I will use a value annotation, which means I am going to say there is some value that is going into the model, and what is that value is Swift car. The value is Swift car. I hope you are able to understand this. So I am saying I am going to inject this value into the Swift car. I hope it is clear, right? In the same way, I am going to just copy this for once. I will go into my polo.java. Here I am going to say it as public polo which is auto wired, and then I am going to import the value and the auto wired annotations, and I am going to say the value here is polo car. The value here is polo car. I hope you are able to understand this. Sir, okay sir, now you have injected the data sir, how does it work sir? Right? Or should I be changing anything in the main method sir? Nothing. You have already injected the data and you have also told your Spring container that whenever you are giving me an object of polo, make sure that your polo, you are going to inject some value into the model variable. So you can see here this is a model. In case when I call the get details for the polo car, if I get it as polo car, it means that the data is injected. Yes or no? So you can just have a look at it here. So I'll just go back to my main method. Here I will just try executing it, and you can see you are going to get it as this is a Swift car, this is a polo car. I hope it is clear. So this is with respect to setter injection, but again if you just have a look at it, I only have a setter injection here. What I am doing here with respect to the setter injection here, I am setting a value, but it is only a value. What if I have a reference sir? How do I set a reference sir? Yes or no? We also have to see that. So for that what I will do is I am going to say I have a infotainment class here anyways, right. So this infotainment class I am going to use it. So already by seeing at the way in which the injection is happening, you may have a question. Sir, in my infotainment class sir, previously what I was doing, I had two different data sir. One was a Sony infotainment system, one was a JBL infotainment system. But how will I do it here sir? Are you able to understand this? Yes? So how do I do it here? See, in case if you want to do it, you will have to go back to the XML notations. In the XML you will have to create two beans, then call those beans here in your annotation for your Swift and Polo individually. But for now I will have one single bean generated and I will call it, right. So for that first and foremost thing, I will go into my infotainment.java. I will go into my infotainment.java, and first and foremost thing what I will do is I am going to say, boss, this infotainment object also has to be created by your Spring container. So what is the first thing that I will have to do? Component, I am going to declare it, and the component name I will write it as info. I will import component, right. And when it comes to the brand, maybe I have a set brand method here, but I don't want to do it by using the setter. I want to do it by using constructor. So I'll say public infotainment accepting string type brand, this dot brand is equals to brand. So here I am going to auto inject a value by saying auto value, value, and maybe I am going to write it as Sony, and if you have to understand, I will have to write it here as auto wired. Control Shift O, I have imported everything. Is this clear till here? Yes. So tell me, what do I have here? If I want this particular infotainment system, I can now be calling this infotainment system by saying info. Will you agree? If I want, I can be calling it by using this term called as info. So where do I want it? I want it in both my classes. Swift class also I want, and also in Polo class also I want. How will I do it? Constructor injection only I am using, sir. So if you go into Swift, what I will do here is I will declare infotainment type I, right? Infotainment type I. This I have declared it in my Swift. I will declare it in my Polo also. Okay? Okay, sir, what next? Do I want setter injection or constructor injection? Constructor injection, which means in my constructor I should be accepting info I. Yes or no? So I will say here as, see this Swift constructor, it will not just accept string model, but it will also accept info I, comma, yeah. And once it is accepting info I will say this dot I is equals to I. Correct? Now the same thing, I will just copy it. I will go to Polo, and this is my Polo constructor. I am going to paste it here. Right? Is this clear till here? Yes? Sir, but how am I going to inject the data, sir? How am I going to inject the data, sir? No. Polo object is already getting created when you call Polo. In Polo, you want infotainment object to be created. Are you able to understand? You know, whenever you tell me here, is it a value that I am trying to inject? What is it? It is a address. What is the address for this object? As of now, if I want the infotainment object, what should I call? Info I should be calling. Previously in your XML also, that is what we did. You know, I had written a bean called as I1, I2. So if I want I1, I used to call I1 ID. In the same way, what is the bean ID that I have here? Info. So I should now be calling info. That much is clear? Yes or no? So here I am going to call info. I am going to call, info here. But what is the annotation, sir? Tell me, is it a value that you are trying to inject? It is a reference. So whenever you have a reference, you will have an annotation called as a qualifier annotation. You will have an annotation called as the qualifier annotation. So I am going to say, boss, there is an object called as info with a bean ID called as info. Can you please inject this object? I hope you are able to understand this. Okay, sir, now you have told @qualifier info. Now the same thing, I will put it into my Polo also, sir. Let me just copy this. Let me go to polo.java. Here, I am going to paste it. Is this clear? Now tell me, which means now once this is injected, I can now be calling the getInfo method, where my infotainment information will be brought to me. So what I will do, let me do one thing. All these import statements, I will just minimize them. Okay. So here I will write one method called as public void getInfo method, and in this getInfo method I will say I dot getInfo. I dot getInfo. So the same thing I will put it into my Polo class also. Okay, sir. Now you have put it into the Polo class also. Now in the main method, while I am calling the s dot get car details, I will also say s dot get info. Get info is not there in your interface. I will have to add it here as void get info method, and now I will come to my main method. I will say get info method. I am trying to print it in the same way, p dot get info method I am going to print. Right? This much is clear. So bean I have declared. I have declared the Swift bean, Polo bean, and also the info bean. And in the Swift bean I have injected the data using a constructor. And the data, it was not just one value data, it was also address data which I had injected. So now I will try to execute it. So once if I start executing, obviously I will have an exception. So what is the exception? See, forget about, don't read all of this. Whenever you have an exception, try to concentrate on what exactly is this much. Unsatisfied dependency exception. After that, what is that? Let's read. So error creating a bean with the name Polo defined in the file. Why? Let me see. Unsatisfied dependency expressed through constructor. So whatever the dependency you have told in the constructor, one of them is not satisfied. Right? No qualifying bean of type com.tab.classes.infotainment available. So it is saying, boss, there is no com.tab.classes.infotainment. So can you tell me, where is this infotainment class first of all? com.tab.classes, right? But tell me, in my beans.xml, did I say, boss, there is one bean, which is there in com.tab.classes? I have not told. Are you able to understand this? So what it is doing, whatever this info you have told, it is only searching in com.tab.implementation. It will check, there is Swift class, Polo class, Swift class, Polo class. Boss, infotainment, you have not mentioned, it is not there. There is no info bean available for me. But then it is seeing, okay, info is of type infotainment. So it has understood, okay, it is from com.tab.classes.infotainment, but that you have not told only as a base class, base package. I hope you are able to understand this. Right? So now what I have to do is I will have to say, see my base package, one is com.tab.implementation, another one is com.tab.classes. I hope you are able to understand this. So let me try executing it like this now. So in case if I now try to execute it, now you can see you have got the infotainment object. Right? So this was one example that I wanted to take to help you understand that while you are declaring the base package, it's not that only one package should be there. Because by now you would have got an idea yesterday when I told you about creating a bean by using a base package. You would have thought, sir, what if I have my classes in various packages, sir? In different packages, I have my class, sir. I want all these beans to be generated, sir. In that case, put a comma, write the package. Put a comma, write the package. My work is simple. Only I'll put a comma and write it, that's all. It is my Spring who has to search all the packages, get the beans for me. I hope it is clear. Right? So any confusion till here? Right. So once you know this, the same code, how to change it to setter injection, I want you to tell me. Simple. Right? So all I'll do is I'll go to Swift, I'll remove a constructor, maybe before I remove a constructor, maybe I'll say void set model method, and I'm going to set the model, then all this I will remove. I hope you are able to understand what I'm trying to do here. So this is with respect to set model. Right? So in the same way, I'll also have void set I method. So I will say public void set I, which is going to accept a qualifier of type info and is going to put it into I, then I will say this dot I is equals to I. Is this clear? So one thing is, this also has to be injected. Yes or no? This setter also should be injected. In that case, I am going to write here as auto wired. I am going to write it here as auto wired. So now I will just copy this. I will put it into my Polo instead of the constructor. I will write these two setters. Here I am going to write it as a Polo car. Right? Any other change that I need? In case if you want in the infotainment also, if you want you can make it as constructor and execute it. Not a big difference. Let me do it of public void set brand. Right? Public void set brand. Then I am going to set the brand as Sony. I hope you are able to understand this. So now I am going to execute it and you can see the output will remain the same. So I hope it is clear here. How is that we are going to perform setter injection and constructor injection using annotations. So basically if you are trying to set a value, you will only be using @value annotation with auto wired. What is auto wired? It is indicating your Spring program that when you generate an object, please inject this data. Whether it is a setter or a getter, you inject it. Sorry, whether it is a setter or a constructor, you inject it. So this is with respect to setter injection and constructor injection. And maybe let us do one more example with our previous code, whatever we had. I had a bank example because let us have an understanding of it very clearly. So now I'll just close all of it. So what was the last program that I had yesterday? IoC annotation, yes. So this was my code that I had. Yes, this was my main method. This was my gold customer, platinum customer, silver customer, and then the customer. So yesterday I guess I took this example to help you understand what will happen if I don't write anything within the Spring Bean ID. Only if I write it as component class, what will happen? Component ID if I do not write. Right. So anyways, if I have to now tell you, I will now add one more class. I had a package here, com.tab.ioc anno.classes. Yes, please. So inside this, I am now going to write a new class, and the class I am going to write it here as address class. Right. So now this is my address class in which I am going to say this address class is also a component class, and inside this address class maybe I am going to have two variables, string city and state. Right. So I am going to have a constructor generated now. So source generate constructor using the fields generated. So what I am going to tell is, boss, this constructor should now be auto injected. The data should be injected. So I will write it here as auto wired. So I will import auto wired. Now for the city I am going to write a value by saying the value inside the city is Bengaluru, and then for the V capital, for the state I will write it here as @value and Karnataka. I will now import the value. Right. Okay, sir, now you have the address written. What next? Yes, the next thing is I will go into my gold customer. Here I am going to say, boss, my gold customer is having an address type AD. So import address, and I am importing address from com.tab.ioc anno.classes.address. And I'll also have a string type, and here I will say this is gold type. And maybe, address also I will put it here only inside it. Why do I simply write multiple methods? So I will say this is a dash customer from, and then I will append city. For this I will append a comma and then state. Right, yeah, ad.city and ad.state. I'll have to make it public in the ad. I hope you are able to understand why I wrote it like that is because I don't want to write multiple methods and call them everything. So you can see customer type is gold customer from Bangalore, Karnataka. You will get it like that, right? Okay, so in the same way, I'll just copy this. I'll go into my platinum customer. Here I will paste it, and first of all here I should have created address type AD and string type. Let me import it. Okay, importing it. Right? Now I want to perform constructor injection of value and type. So what I will do is I'll go to the gold customer. First and the foremost thing, I will write here as public gold customer constructor is what I have. GOLD, gold customer constructor. This gold customer constructor should accept address type AD comma string type. Now I am going to say, boss, this has to be auto wired. This data should be auto wired. And once it is being auto wired, I will say, see, address, you get it from this address. I have only written it as component. I have not written anything in the brackets. So tell me, if you have not written anything within the bracket, what does it mean? I should use the bean ID same as that of the class name. But only thing is, the initial character has to be a lowercase character. Correct? So the same thing is what I will do here. I will go to gold customer, and here I will say @qualifier, and I am going to write here as address. I hope it is clear. In the same way, for the type, is it a reference of other object or is it a value? It is a value. So I will say @value, and what is the value? Gold customer. Right? I have imported gold customer, value as well. I hope it is clear. Sir, I have got this data, sir, what should I do? This data, you say this dot AD is equals to AD, this dot type is equals to type. Is this clear? Yes. So now the same thing, I will put it inside my platinum customer, and I will rename it as I want it. So you can see here, I will make the constructor as platinum customer, then address I am going to inject, and then the value I will inject it as platinum customer into my constructor. Now I will go to my main method. In the main method I will remove away the silver customer because I have not done anything for the silver customer. That was for our understanding of how do you call it in case if you are not using a Pascal way of writing your code. So I will now call GCPC, but you have an error. What is the error for? Sir, address we have not mentioned in the beans. Look at the beans here, beans.xml, where is it? This was the project, src, beans.xml. Look at it, I have only told about com.tab.ioc anno.impl. But have I told about address? No. Where is address? it is in com.tab.ioc anno.classes. So I will write it here by saying com.tab.ioc anno.classes.address, right? So now I will write this much, and in case if I go to my main method and now if I try to execute my code, what happened? Gold customer. Okay, for gold customer, what did I write? I have written gold. Did I make changes here? Classes dot address I have written, no? Okay, sorry. I have written the class name. Okay. I should only be writing the package name com.tab.ioc anno.classes. Okay, sorry. Now let me try to execute. You can see it says customer type is gold customer from Bangalore, Karnataka. Customer type is platinum customer from Bangalore, Karnataka. So the same thing again, converting it into setter injection as well. So do you want me to do that, or will you try it? You can try it, right? Right. So this is with respect to annotations, right? This is with respect to annotation. Sir, I don't want to do it with respect to annotation also, sir. There are three ways: XML, annotation, configuration class, right? I am not doing it through annotation, I want to do it through configuration class. So everything else will remain the same. Your beans.xml will be removed off. I hope you are able to understand this. So you can see here, what I will do is I will remove away my beans.xml from my project only. I am deleting it from my project. So you can see this is my beans.xml. I will right click, I will say delete, beans.xml is deleted. Can you tell me what was there in the beans.xml? Sorry? The package to the bean classes. The packages of the bean classes was there. So the same thing, I can write it using a configuration class. So what is this configuration class? Let me try to help you understand. What I will do is maybe under anywhere, wherever you want you can create, but I will write it under classes. So com.tab.ioc anno.classes, here I will say a new class. What is the name of the class, sir? If you ask me, maybe I will say config class of customer. It is your wish, it's a class name. Whatever you want, you write. So I have written it here as config class for customer. Sir, you have written config class for customer, sir, correct. Tell me, just by writing it as a config class, will it become a configuration class? If you remember, just by writing a class as invalid customer exception, was it an exception class? What should you do? You are extending from an exception. In the same way here, if this class has to be told as a configuration class, I will not be extending anything, I will write an annotation because I am following an annotation approach. Right? I have an @configuration annotation. I have an annotation called as @configuration. I hope you are able to understand this. Right? Now, after this, what else were you writing inside your beans.xml file? Yes? Package, base package you were writing, but before that? Component scan. Component scan were you writing? So the same thing I will write here, component scan annotation. Right? So I'll import component scan. And in this I will say the base package is, or the packages, let me just check, component scan, what comes under this? Base packages, yes, there is no hyphen, I wrote a hyphen, so it is base packages. So I will have to tell what are my base packages. So first and the foremost thing, com.tab.ioc anno is one package, I will paste it. I will say comma, com.tab.ioc anno dot classes, because this is where I have my address, right? So I will write it like this, and now I will go to my main method. Once if I start executing, it will check is there a beans.xml. There is no beans.xml. It will check is there a configuration class with a class having an annotation as configuration. Yes, there is one class. It will come here. Then it will check up, please can you tell me where should I scan for components? What are the component scans that I should be doing? So it will say, boss, there are two base packages that you need to search for. com.tab.ioc anno.impl, com.tab.ioc anno.classes. Search in these packages, you will get. Now I will go to my main method. Let me execute. Some exception, bean definition, store exception, cannot parsing XML. XML has to be okay. Okay. I have told here as a class path XML application context. So I should not be using the class path XML application context now. Can I use it? Is there a beans.xml? No, I will not use it. So whatever the whatever I had imported, I will remove the import statements. Control Shift O, I have removed it. I have removed whatever the unwanted import statements I had. Now, sir, then how am I going to use it, sir? There is another class which you will be using, annotation config application context. I'm not sure, just let me check. Yeah. Annotation config application context AC is equals to new. I'll just have to create an object of this particular class. Annotation config application context, and here I'll have to name, or I'll have to write the name of the configuration class that I'm using. So what is the name of the configuration class? Config class customer. So I'll say config class customer. So one thing with your annotation configuration application context is it will accept dot class extension. It will not accept a regular .java extension, it will accept a dot class extension. So I will say it as dot class. Create what is it? Config class customer. Sorry. Should I put it inside double quotes? Config, no. I'll have to import config class customer. I am writing a class name, I should import it. You can see here. I have imported it here. I hope you understand this. Alright, sir, now we are using, you can see here, it is annotation config application context AC is equals to new annotation config application context, where I am saying config class customer dot class. I have imported it as well, and then everything else will remain the same. Now I will try to execute it, and you can see I will get the output as it is, right? See, once for all, I guess it is setter injection is what we did. So no, constructor injection is what I did. Once for all, I did not create a bean, then inject the constructor, everything. I want you to sit down and try it, right? So this is with respect to your IoC and dependency injections, right? So what is inversion of control, how to make your Spring generate a bean, then how do you insert the data, how do you make your Spring container inject the data using a setter injection, constructor injection is what I have discussed till here. So in tomorrow's session we will discuss about the Spring ORM. That is ORM, I guess Hibernate ORM, you have used it already. Object relational mapping, where you will have an entity class representing a table in your database, right? So I'll be using the Spring ORM, and maybe how by using Spring with Hibernate, I am going to insert the data, get the data. This is basically by using your console. Right? After that we will get into Spring MVC, where I will have a front end generated. I will have a front end with Spring and Hibernate, where I will try to perform all your CRUD operations. Right? So this is Spring ORM, Spring MVC, and then I will get into Spring Boot. Right? So whatever I have discussed in today's session, I hope it is clear. So whatever are the other parts, I guess by using the annotation, I wanted you to perform setter injection for the bank example. Then I want you to perform just getting the bean here with respect to configuration class, and then perform setter injection as well. All right. So in tomorrow's session, I will be starting off with a new concept, which is Spring ORM. But again, when it goes to Spring ORM, there what I will be doing is whenever I want to interact with the database, if you remember in your Hibernate, you were using session, right? Session, I will be asking my Spring container to generate and give me. I will not be creating a Spring session. I will ask my Spring container to give me. Then you will have to understand, for that session you need so many parameters, the URL, the username, pass, how I will set all of that data. All that is something that we will try to understand in tomorrow's session, right? So make sure you don't miss out, and I can see every day there are new faces coming in, old faces are going out. Make sure you be consistent, because see, next 5-10 days, Spring ORM 1 or 2 days, Spring MVC 1 or 2 days, or let's say 3-4 days, then Spring Boot another 3-4 days. Let's assume a total of 10 more days. Make sure you attend it, because see, I definitely understand that you will have a thought processor. I have attended interviews. In those many interviews, none of them asked me questions on Spring or Hibernate. But let me tell you, you have knowledge on Spring and Hibernate. When you start working, it is going to add advantage to you. So make sure you attend the sessions regularly. All right. So I'll halt my session here. I'll see you in tomorrow's session. Thank you so much.